The second half of Chapter 4 focuses on some specific factors that can affect the auditor's risk assessment of a company. Related party transactions are a big area of interest to auditors when they're trying to set the audit plan in motion. And basically, these related party transactions are transactions between managers or the owners of the company or family members of managers or owners and the company itself. So, for example, maybe the company loans money to a corporate officer. That's a related party transaction. You could have maybe a company that does business with another firm owned by somebody that is a high-level executive at the company. All right, that's a related party transaction. So anytime when you have a transaction of this sort, as an auditor, you want to pay very close attention to those areas, because remember that fraud triangle, we talk about incentives as being part of the triangle. People have an incentive, right, to commit fraud with those types of transactions because they can directly affect the financial interest of the folks involved. So most related party transactions will be on the level, but anytime one appears, auditors do want to pay close attention for any possibility of fraud. There's a couple of different ways auditors could collect evidence to try to investigate related party transactions. Any contracts or agreements between management or folks in charge of corporate governance and the company should be brought to light and studied by the auditor. Life insurance policies are often taken out by the company on the lives of corporate officers, so that's an area of interest to auditors at this stage in the audit. And also remember that companies that have internal auditors, there's going to be a communication between the outside auditor, the CPA firm, and the internal auditors. So remember, internal auditors are folks that work within a company full-time, trying to safeguard a company's assets and financial information. So that is a great source of knowledge for the auditors when they're working through this stage of the audit. We're going to talk later in the course about the relationship in more detail between outside CPA auditors and internal auditors, and how much we could actually rely on these internal auditors' work when we're conducting the audit as the outside CPA firm. Another area of great interest during the risk assessment stage is corporate governance, and basically this is referring to the systems and processes used within companies to kind of manage the company and its corporate personnel. We need to distinguish between executive directors and non-executive directors. Executive directors are folks who work for the company in executive managerial positions and also serve on the company's board of directors. Non-executive directors do not work for the company in any capacity, but they sit on the board of directors. Remember, if you think of like a flow chart hierarchy of a company, you have all the different executives kind of report to the CEO, and the CEO ultimately reports to the board of directors, who are voted on and put in power by the shareholders. So the board of directors has different subcommittees. We can see here kind of the corporate board, and notice we have a little area for the different committees. So the audit committee is kind of like a subcommittee of the board of directors, and the auditors conducting the audit have a direct line with the company's audit committee. So that's a good line of communication, that if you have any issues during the audit as the outside CPA auditor, you want to communicate that to the audit committee. They are responsible for overseeing the accounting and financial reporting processes of the company. All right, so those folks kind of have the final say over financial reporting, and they're actually going to be very important in the engagement process when the CPA firm and company are coming to an agreement to actually engage in the audit. It's the audit committee that actually decides what auditor they want to bring in for the audit. So this audit committee within the company basically kind of interviews CPA firms to figure out which one's the best fit. They kind of have oversight for the compensation of the outside auditors. So these auditors report directly to this audit committee. And if there's any issues between management and auditors over financial reporting. This audit committee is kind of like the mediator between the two parties. So audit committees have to be independent members of the board of directors, meaning they're these non-executive members, because the idea here is you don't want people that are managers in the business sitting on the audit committee, because then they're kind of overseeing their own work. So we really want the audit committee to be as independent as possible. So it's made up of these outside board of director members. And at least one member of the audit committee does need to have some expertise on financial matters. So they're considered the financial expert on the audit committee. Internal control surrounding IT is another big area where auditors are focused at the beginning of an audit. Obviously, computer systems are very important in a number of different regards when we're talking about a company's operations, and especially when talking about accounting for financial transactions. So the auditor wants to oversee the different procedures a company uses to select IT systems, change systems, how they go about training staff for use of new systems. All these areas are helping auditors try to catch up front any issues, because auditors oftentimes will rely upon IT systems to kind of give validation to internal control. If the IT systems are working well and internal control is working in good order, remember that reduces that control risk, which may lead the auditor to take on less detailed procedures down the line to try to catch errors in the financial statement. So as auditors, we want to have a good feel for what's going on with the company's IT systems. And again, we want to make sure, just to really emphasize, that we need to have that understanding that they have good systems in place for selecting their software for an accounting system. And some companies will build this stuff in-house, so they'll create their own accounting systems. Other companies buy what we call off-the-shelf systems. So you can see when we're thinking about different possible risks associated with IT systems, each of these types of software has different risks. If we have our own programmers develop an accounting system, risks could develop because maybe this system hasn't been tested anywhere outside of our company. So you don't have that high level of testing that you might otherwise have if we bought some off-the-shelf software that's used by multiple different companies. So in that case, there might be issues with bugs in the system. So the auditor has to be on guard for that situation. And also on the flip side, if the company is using commercial off-the-shelf software, there might be issues that software doesn't necessarily meet all the requirements of the client, or maybe the client has had to modify that software in some way that can maybe create issues. So we want to think about the type of software we're using, and also very, very critical, we want to think about internal control regarding access to computers, software, data. That's going to be really critical when we're trying to look and rely on these systems later on in the audit. One last area of focus is closing procedures. So if you recall from your financial accounting courses, near the end of the period, if we're doing a monthly accounting cycle, at the end of the month, we're going to have adjusting entries and closing entries. So this is an area where errors can often arise, or this is an area where sometimes we have estimates and accountant's judgment being used during this process. So it's an area where the auditors want to pay special attention, especially any transactions, again, that affect revenue accounts.